Anybody in here willing to admit they actually play Pokemon Go? In this group of austere people, we have one. All of these academic types, we have one person. That's great. I won't pick on you too much. But what do you got to do in Pokemon Go? You got to catch them all, right? So we treat skills like that. We're like, oh, teamwork? Yeah, I caught that one. All right, cultural competency? Boom, that one's in my gym. I don't really understand Pokemon Go. You can correct me later. You know, oh, leadership? Great. Problem solving, communication, influence? I caught them all. Except that's not the way learning works, right? You don't just take a bucket and fill it up with skills and then you're full and then we give you a diploma or give you an award at a student leadership awards banquet. Each one of those skills has their own level of skills, and we've got to figure out how to make sure that students can level up over time in each one of those skills. So we've been using this framework, which is that students should be able to gain higher order thinking skills and higher order skill development as they go in our programs. And so we're actually mapping that to make sure that it happens. We're not going to focus as much on this. Many of you recognize that as Bloom's revised taxonomy, although I'll show you some data later that relates to that. But it's these 5 A's of skill development that we really use to frame what we're doing with students. In order to accomplish developing a new skill, you have to first be aware of that skill and aware of your need for that skill and your level of that skill. Then you can begin the process of acquiring that skill. But unless you apply it, you won't truly have it, right? Does anybody in here want to get an injection from a nurse that's only put a syringe in an orange? Do you want to have a nurse put in an IV that learned exclusively online? You're like, I went to University of Phoenix and I've been wanting to try this procedure. You're like, you know what? I don't mean to pick on University of Phoenix. There you go. So then once we have the skill, we can begin to advance it. And then, and only then, can we begin to articulate it. I've noticed a lot of folks in student affairs that really want to focus on that articulation stage, but you can't articulate skills you don't have, right? So we're going to prove that in just a second too. So now, many of you have been eyeing these juggling balls up here and wondering, what is he going to do with that? I want to teach someone to juggle. Is there anybody in this room? And again, Keith is a ringer. I totally could have gone to him and said, hey Keith, later I'm going to teach you to juggle, and you just play along. But how many of you in here have ever thought, I'd kind of like to learn how to juggle, but you just never did? I'm going to need one guinea pig who's not afraid to look silly in front of a crowd of people. All right. Everyone, CC Con, come on, give it up. Perfect. You know,
not be able to teach me how to do this.
Here's the thing. I guarantee you that I will teach you to juggle, and I'm going to do it in 1 minute.
I will not be able to do
But I'm going to tell you when I'm starting the clock, because we have a little bit of work to do first. Okay, Cece? I mean, you're not just going to come up here and juggle. I want to try a couple of things first. So first of all, I don't know if you're aware, or come on over here with me. We're actually videoing this, so I want to make sure that you're in the video. For a theater person, you have very little stage presence. Come right here. Everybody can see it. Okay. So can I teach you to juggle? Let's start off and let's build your knowledge of juggling, okay? So I don't know if you actually realize this, but some of the earliest recorded history of juggling is seen on cave painting walls in an Egyptian tomb. It actually belonged to Becket III, provincial governor, during the later years of the 11th dynasty of Egypt. And you can see that actually depicts some female dancers and acrobats, and clearly they're juggling, and one of them's even doing kind of a cool trick. I can't even imagine how you'd do that. I think your arms would have to be considerably longer than mine in order to do that. But this is kind of the history of juggling. So did you know any of that?
No.
Awesome. So juggle. I just taught you quite a bit about juggling, so let's see if you can juggle.
Nope.
Yes. I guess it didn't work. All right, so what is the fallacy I just illustrated here? Exactly. Knowledge and skill are not the same thing. We need both of them, and they're both important, but again, I'm going to call out my own people. How often do we do this? We go, hey, everybody, here's a quote from Ralph Nader. It says, the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. Now go lead. That didn't do it either, did it? We need to actually try these things out in order for them to work. So let's go back to those 5 A's again, and let's teach CC to juggle through the lens of those 5 A's. And let's also remember that there is this thing I call the knowledge skill continuum, which is having knowledge about something is important and foundational in learning, but you actually have to do it in order for it to be successful. And even further, there's this sort of middle point, this tipping point, if you will, that is really important where we cross over from knowledge into skills. So we're going to see if that can actually happen today. Now I'll tell you, CC, you will not be a professional juggler at the end of this, but you will at least have the knowledge that you need to build a foundation to do this over time, especially if you really want to. So those 5 A's kind of are spread out throughout that as well. In the knowledge section, we have awareness, acquisition, and application. That's where we're actually learning about the skill. And then by the time we get to advancement and articulation, we need to actually have skill. You can't teach something that you don't know how to do. So let's establish a baseline. So this is where my 1 minute period of time begins. For this, you'll only need 1 ball. And I'm going to have you stand right next to me because, again, I'm taping this. Can you juggle 1 ball?
I don't think that's juggling. Nope.
You know what? I was wrong. You are hopeless. Please have a seat right over here.
Okay.
1 ball juggling, everybody. You know what? I still have time left in my minute. Let's see. Could you juggle 2 balls?
Oh God. No. The answer is no.
I would call that bad juggling, but it's juggling. Let's give it a round of applause. Now, actually, here's what's amazing. I've done this all over the country, and I've never had anybody start juggling that way with 2 balls. What they actually normally do is this. How many of you would have approached it this way? Right? Could you do that?
I can't do it. I'm telling you, I can't do it. I can't.
You know, here's the good news about that. The first thing you have to do is unlearn that. If you want to learn how to juggle, that is how 2-ball juggling can work. No, I don't want you to keep working on that skill because it's a bad skill. We would have to unlearn it.
See?
Doing this does not lead to 3-ball juggling because there are probably people who could do it that way, but I'm certainly not one of them. So we're going to break this skill down into some miniature skills. So the very first one is throwing the ball at a consistent height. Now I already noticed you've got a preference for not throwing it very high. This is actually much harder. It is much harder to juggle. Here, let me see your ball for just a second. You can actually throw it up if you want. All right, it is much harder to juggle like this than it is to juggle like this. You see how you've got so much more time to think about it? So see if you can throw that ball a consistent height. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to throw mine up too. See if you can match what I'm doing. She's pretty good, isn't she? Yeah. All right. So here comes the next skill.
It's not going to happen. Okay.
Can you catch the ball without looking? So when you throw it up, you watch it at its peak and you use that to determine where your hand should be. I couldn't even imagine catching a ball this way. It looks extremely awkward. By the way, juggling is excellent exercise, especially for the abs, because you got to bend over quite a bit to pick up balls. So,
Okay.
This is all right. So throw it up and see if you can catch it without looking specifically at your hand. Yeah. Maybe keeping it just this side of the ceiling. She's got it. How about that? Okay. So we're ready to level up. Can you juggle 2 balls with 2 hands? Now, this one's a little trickier.
Yeah.
So you're going to throw this up, catch.
Oh, okay.
Throw this up, catch. This one will take a minute.
Throw up, catch. Hold it. No, I don't.
Now I'm going to recommend, by the way, are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Perfect. I'm going to recommend you throw with your left hand first. So you're going to go, what?
Right.
What? And I want you to think about it as if there is an X right here. And you're going to go, what? What?
Left, right.
All right.
Left, right, left, right.
Just left, then right. And catch.
Left, right.
Okay, you did the throwing part excellently. The catching part needs a little bit of work.
Left, right.
Oh my gosh, again, the hardest part is actually seeing the pattern. So that's good, you're seeing the pattern. Now see if you can catch. All right, so that's not too bad. Everyone, I think we all agree.
Okay.
No one's leaving here until Cece can juggle. Am I correct about this? Okay. So actually, we're gonna.
Not gonna happen.
That skill. If you don't like that skill, wait till you get to the next one.
I can't.
So that skill is foundational to the next skill of juggling,
I didn't get the
which is
foundation.
juggling 2 balls with 1 hand. This one will take the longest for you to develop, so it probably won't develop today. But here's what that looks like. You know what, though?
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of time. You don't ever need to do that exactly in order to juggle, but it does lead to this juggling trick, which is one of my favorites. All right. So in order for you to do it, throw one nice and high, throw the other one, catch, catch. If you can even do it 1 time, this crowd is going to erupt in applause.
Okay, all right. So did you have them both in your hand when you threw that one? Or?
You can do it. Yeah. Oh, I put them both
Yes,
in
both
one
in your
hand. Throw one up. All right.
I threw it so you could catch it.
We're a great team. We're a great team. She did it! She threw it 1 time. So catching is an advanced skill. That's all right. And that leads to juggling 3 balls with 2 hands. Now later I'll teach you to juggle 3 balls with 3 hands. I can't do that. But it is simply the application.
Got the third hand to catch it. Wait,
Absolutely. We're going to take this comedy show on the road. It's too good to just waste it at the CTL conference room. All right. So remember this skill where we just kind of threw it like this? Remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember the skill where we did this? Juggling is simply catching that ball with the other hand. And when you see good juggling, which surprisingly you're kind of seeing today, I haven't dropped one yet, but that probably means I will. You forget.
Your confidence, I'm sure.
It looks like 3 balls are in the air at the same time, right? But when you slow it down, you realize there's really only 1 ball that's going up and 1 ball that's going down. Do you want to try it? Let's.
Wait, I can't do 2 guys. There's no way I can 3.
This is the point at which I mentioned that I am not surprisingly was a theater major. So, all right, Cece, take 2 balls
I don't
in 1 hand.
perform. Right?
Take 1 ball in the left hand and come right over here. All right, and what I want you to do is throw that one here, throw that one here, and then throw that one right before you catch that one there. If you can even do 1 rotation of this, you will, again,
I am
earn
a
the
resistant
entire...
learner. I refuse.
Give
I
it a try.
cannot. I would be so mad at my students if they said they can't do it.
Overcoming fear of looking silly is a big part of it, isn't it?
Up.
Oh my gosh! Oh, let's give CC a big round of applause. You can't hand the juggler a ball, you gotta throw it up in the air.
Oh, where?
All right. What was the point of this exercise? The point of this exercise was I always wanted to be a performer, and this was finally my chance. No, the point of this exercise is that where we got Cece was really to the point where Cece could probably explain to someone else how to juggle right now, even if she cannot do it. She could get this PowerPoint, she could walk someone through it, she could say, look, these are the steps in juggling. Even that isn't enough. We have to get our students beyond that threshold. Now I have to tell you, last night I took great joy in teaching my son how to juggle. And I have to tell you, I worked with him maybe for about an hour. I asked Cece if she'd be willing to stay here for an hour after class. She said no. But this is where he got in 1 hour. How about that, right? He will love your applause. I'll show him the video. So, he has now crossed over for that knowledge skill threshold. And if he continues to work on this skill, he could refine it.